Hello and welcome to day 2. This is Build Live presented by Channel 9. We have all of the coverage of the keynote that's going to happen today. We have a ton of sessions going on as well. I'm pretty excited to be here. And we were able to finagle a special couple of guests today. How are you doing, my friends?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Fantastic. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Amanda Silver. I'm the Director of Program Management for Visual Studio and VS Code.
Fantastic.
Hi, my name's Deborah Chen, also Program Manager at Microsoft.
Awesome. So we got to bring them on. She said she would do it last minute. We're very lucky. Why don't you tell us some of the cool things that you talked about during the keynote, maybe some cool things that you want to announce today?
Yeah, so during the keynote, I did a demo of Visual Studio Live Share, which I'll actually be on Channel 9 to show off later this afternoon.
Cool.
And then one of the things that I was really excited to announce yesterday was something called Intellicode that I want to show off to you guys today. But then later in the afternoon, I did a session, and that just covered absolutely everything. I did a quantum demo.
Holy cow!
I know.
With Q-Sharp and everything.
With Q-Sharp and everything.
Oh my goodness.
I did a Python and C++ demo.
Okay.
And then we got into productivity. We showed 20 minutes of brand new productivity features in Visual Studio. We showed an integrated PR experience, which I can show you in a second in Visual Studio. We showed time travel debugging. Time travel debugging in C# on Visual Studio, where you can basically collect a trace from a production server, and then give that to the developer, and Visual Studio will connect to it, and then you could go backwards and forwards in time in the execution of the process.
I've got to say, sounds amazing.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. Yeah, so that's a lot of the stuff that we showed.
So one of the ones that I'm interested in, because I'm an AI type guy and I love AI stuff, is Intellicode. I've heard that there's some AI stuff in there. Why don't you describe Intellicode? Tell us what it is.
Sure. I mean, basically, Intellicode is a large banner under which we put the question, how can AI make developers more productive?
Okay.
And so we're thinking about it both for individual developer productivity, but also for the entire team.
Okay.
How can we make the entire team more productive with the power of AI? So we have 4 examples of early thoughts on how we can kind of do that right now. We actually also have the first edition of an extension available that has an AI-augmented IntelliSense experience.
Okay.
So everybody can download that now, today, and start giving us feedback on that. But that's just one of 4 different things that I'll show you in just a second.
Awesome. Well, before we do that, you worked on this demo, didn't you? Tell us about that.
I did work on this demo. Honestly, it was an amazing experience. It was really a huge collaborative effort between tons of teams, both in our developer division as well as MSR. So definitely couldn't have done it without the hard work of lots and lots of people.
Awesome. So this is like a truly, there's definitely AI models being called in the back end.
Yep.
Well, let's see now. I'm all excited to see it.
Okay.
Right.
So the first thing I'm going to show you guys is AI augmented IntelliSense.
Cool.
So if you see, I'm in the code editor here. If I start typing if PA, now the thing about completion lists today in all of the code editors that everybody else is using is that they are sorted alphabetically.
Right.
Which is really great in some ways because it gives you confidence. You know exactly kind of what order things are going to appear in.
Yeah.
But if you want something that starts with a P or an S, you have to scroll a lot to get there, right?
True.
And so, so what you can see here is that if I complete with path, and then I hit dot, we actually get stars on some of the APIs that are the most likely to be used in this context.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this is not just the most popular APIs for that particular API, for path in this case. It's actually the most likely APIs to be used in this context based on the parameter that's being called in, the previous code that was being called, and what you'll see is that will actually change as I type more. Okay?
Okay, so let me see if I understand this, and hopefully we can get a screenshot of, I want people to see this the whole time. These star things are not just like what's been used the most time, but that can likely change based upon a number of things.
It's basically based on the training over 2,000 C# code open source repositories, okay, that each have over 100 stars.
Okay.
So they're liked, hopefully representing best practices.
Right.
And then it's that model combined with the context of the code that you're writing at the time.
I see.
Right?
I see. So the features and the input are coming directly from other code.
Yeah, so you got the other code that's actually a guidance to you, but then it's also combining that with the code that you're writing at the time.
Oh my goodness, this
to
is so
make
clever.
this really, really an optimal experiment.
All right, well, let's keep going.
So in my case, what I want to do is check for trailing slashes. So I'm just going to pick ends with, okay? And then I'm just going to call TS just to call the complete the trailing slash variable. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit path again. Now I'm going to hit statement completion again. And what you probably expect is that it would look exactly the same as the completion list that I hit for path
Right,
previously.
there was 4 different things.
But like I said, this is actually based on the context of the code that I previously wrote, okay? So it's now actually different because I previously called ends with.
Yeah.
And the model knows that if I called ends with previously, then I'm more likely to use substring right after that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So the next thing I can do is go ahead and complete with substring, because that actually is what I want to write. But IntelliCode isn't just about statement completion. It actually also helps with your overloads. So I can go ahead and do completion there. And you can see that it's actually picking the second overload, whereas usually IntelliSense and completion
Starts
would
with
pick the first one, right? But it knows that in this context, if I'm calling a substring after an ends with, that I actually want to use the one with 2 parameters.
That's right.
So
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and do 0 here. And now, again, I'm going to bring up the completion list for path. But because it knows that I'm in the parameter call for length, you'll see that if I hit dot, it actually brings up length in this context.
Well, I don't even have to write code anymore.
Yeah,
I just have to press dot and tab like I've always wanted to. Amanda, thank you.
So I just hit the completion list for path 3 different times in writing this line of code.
-1.
Yes, thank you, -1. She knows the
That's why
demo
she's here.
perfectly,
That's why she's
exactly.
here. Thank you.
Right, to my right. But I just called the completion list for path 3 times in the course of writing this code, and it was 3 different completion lists, all that were optimized for the line of code that I was writing.
And that's amazing because, like, usually one of the things I like statement completion is I can see what the thing does, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to explore the API. But when I'm actually getting into actually writing stuff, I literally don't want, I'm like searching, I don't want that. And so it's cool to have suggestions on, do you mean this? Yes.
Yeah, but it's not just that. I mean, it's great for the thousandth time that you're writing against an API, but it's also really fantastic for the first time that you're writing against an API, because you're learning the API at the time. Don't you want to know what are the common coding conventions and calling patterns for that API?
Yeah, well, because if I'm a new programmer,
Yeah.
I'm getting the wisdom of tons of repositories that have more than 300 stars.
More than 100 stars.
More than
yeah.
100 stars. Sorry, was it 300 repositories?
It's 2,000 repositories with 100
repositories
stars.
with 100 stars.
That's so far. I mean, obviously, we will increase our training set over time.
And it's cool that it's like teaching me,
Yeah.
kind of.
I think it's really cool for the programmer who's learning, but I think it's also really cool for the programmer who's learning a new API. I mean, like, let's say somebody wants to go learn blockchain, for
Right.
example, right? It's new technology to everybody. How could you learn about, what APIs you should be calling as you learn the blockchain API?
It's cool. So I see you're using them all here. What else are you using machine learning for here?
Okay, so one of the things that we've been working on is style conformance as
Okay.
well, right? So in the solution, I can go ahead and just click Add New
There's
Item.
already one in there if you want to.
I know there is.
Okay,
I know.
you're good.
I'm just
Okay.
going to show how it works. Add New Item, and then I can search for IntelliCode. I just want to show everybody
cool.
how they can use this.
Yeah.
I can search for IntelliCode. Is that not showing up?
Press enter.
IntelliCode. Enter. Oh, not showing up. Well, there's already an editor config in here. But
Cool.
basically, what you can see is that this editor config was actually generated by IntelliCode.
Okay.
And so what this is doing is it's actually inferring from the code base the dominant styles for your code base.
Oh no.
Right?
Like I say that because like the AI is going to be like, Seth, please stop. What are you doing to your code?
Well, what's really nice about this is that there are no longer arguments that happen about what the dominant style is. You actually can get the machine to tell you what the dominant style is. And there might still be debates over whether or not you like that style.
Right.
And you want to change that style. But this actually allows you to infer it.
I see.
Yeah.
So with this, I can then go back to my file service call, and I can bring up.
Let's go to the screen here so people can see this.
Yeah. So now you can see that I have a whole bunch of errors, style errors in here that are in this particular code base,
Okay.
right? And I'm just going to go ahead and select some of these lines and hit Control-KD, okay, which is a new gesture that actually allows us to clean it up. And you can see that the errors went away, but even further, you could see that that not only did we change the lines of code that were highlighted, but if you look in the gutter for all the yellow, for this 500-line file, we probably had like 13 different changes in this particular code.
I see.
That were all style changes that had no semantic impact on the execution of the code, but really just changed the code style that you're using.
So that happened really fast.
Super fast.
Yeah, but can you Control Z so I can see, or like go back? Is there a way to go back?
Control Z. We're still perfecting this.
Okay.
So Control Z doesn't quite work as expected right now.
Okay.
So, but we're getting there. Before we release the editor config portion of it, it will.
That's awesome. And so what happens there is that like it infers how you're actually typing stuff up.
Yep.
And then what it does is it says, okay, based upon this thing, this is going to be a problem. Or maybe it does not going to conform.
So what it does is it looks over your large code base, and it says, based on all the code that we can see, these are the dominant styles in that code base, and then it codifies them in an editor config file.
I see. So again, if I'm a new programmer, I can get in there and like learn the style of the company.
So exactly. So like one of the things that we've seen in interviewing a lot of developers is that onboarding new developers is challenging.
Right.
And it's challenging for both the new developer and the senior developer because the new developer doesn't know what the styles, coding conventions, like how to make a good PR, and then they submit this PR and they end up with reams of comments on the pull request, right? And about 19% of feedback comments on pull requests are actually style related.
Oh my goodness.
So imagine if you actually never have to run into that challenge again when you're onboarding a new developer because you've actually codified all of the styles in the code base so that the developer knows as they're coming up how to conform to the style guidelines.
That's kind of cool. And there's a question that came in about this.
Yeah.
Can IntelliCode with that editor.config thing replace style cop rules?
I mean, in some ways, yes. So basically, it's just purely based on code styles. Style cop rules also pertain to the way that people create API signatures and things like that. So there might be some things that are in some style cop rules that aren't yet in the editor config.
I see.
But over time, I think we could definitely get there.
That's cool. Next question. Will I be able to train my own organizational models with org-specific IntelliCode models?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is definitely something that we're thinking about, and it's a great idea. I think what we need to do is to go test and see if the model is actually better when we do that. And so we don't know yet the answer. We think it's something interesting to look at, so we'll be looking at that over the next few months.
That's cool. Next one, I saw the IntelliCode integration with GitHub on Visual Studio, but I was wondering if it's going to be possible to have a similar integration with Stack Overflow. I did not know there was a GitHub integration with IntelliCode.
IntelliCode integration with GitHub. I'm not sure what they mean by that.
Is there like a Git something? Tell us, yeah.
I think maybe part of the confusion is we've definitely trained it on open source repos on GitHub.
Right.
But that model, of course, already exists, and we were using it. So integration is kind of after this.
Yeah, I mean, looking at code samples on Stack Overflow would also be another great suggestion that we should think about. Yeah.
And I think it's important for people to realize that machine learning is 2 steps. You train the thing, and then you have this asset that you use later. And you already trained it, and so the asset's separate.
Right. So for the IntelliSense portion of what I showed you guys, that's actually already trained on this training set that I talked about. And then we have a model that basically is installed locally so that you can get the performance super fast as you type. Right?
That's
But there are other things that I'm going to show you in a second that actually have that are based in the service, and so they don't have a model that's trained locally and are much more like a deep learning type.
Well, now I want to see it. I mean, what is this thing that you're telling me about?
Okay, so what you can see here is that I have a pull request update with new comments here.
Okay.
Now, just for expediency, I'm going to switch versions of Visual Studio that already has that pull request open. And so you can see all the pull request details right here. This is actually a real code base inside of, actually this is the live share code base
Nice.
that we're demoing on. And so you can see that I get, this is a new experience in Visual Studio to see all the pull request details. So I can see, all the reviewers that are here and things like that. And then what Visual Studio does, which is really cool, is that it checks out the branch and it switches to the branch. The performance for branch switching has really improved in the latest versions. And then it basically gets this version of Visual Studio ready to go and inspect this, this pull request. Exactly. So now you can see that I can basically use Visual Studio the way that I would expect to. So I could open the Solution Explorer. I have the same context that I'm used to using in Visual Studio, the full solution, as opposed to just a file that has a diff.
Right.
I actually have my bearings. But that might be a lot of code to review. You don't necessarily know what to go look at. So we have this new button up here that allows you to filter just to the files that have changed. So I'm going to go ahead and filter that.
Okay.
Okay. But even then, I still might not know what files to focus on because there's actually a lot that has changed in this pull request.
Okay.
This particular pull request was adding the shared terminal feature in live share that I'll demo later today.
This already is super cool.
Yeah.
Just be able to okay, this is what changed.
Yeah.
Whoa, they shouldn't be in this area. What's going on?
Yeah. So even further, there's still a lot of stuff to look at. So if you look at this, you could see if I do a plus, let's see. Is this gonna work? Oops. Let's see. Can I do this plus? There we go. You can see that the Intellicode service is actually saying that these are the files that you should focus on for this review for a variety of reasons based on our machine learning algorithm, which is things like the complexity of the code base, things like how often the file has changed, the kinds of updates, the bug history, things like that, to say, okay, this is for your code review. This is the file that you should really focus on.
Now, is the machine learning model, where is it learning that's right? The way I understand machine learning is there's a bunch of features that generates a model to do predictions.
Yeah.
What features are you using to predict that is a file you should look at for this pull request?
I can take part of this. Sure. So what it does is, this is very specific to your own repo. So it'll take all the PR history you have, which for the live share repo is actually not as long as you'd think, but there's a lot of PRs that it's analyzed.
Sure.
So what it'll do is look for, like Amanda said, there's a tons of, I think there's over 30 features used. Some of them include things related to file complexity, how the files relate to other files, so dependencies, if the files associated with PRs that have been linked to bugs in the past, because that might be a sign you should look at something further, and tons of other features that go in the model as well.
And so you're looking at not just history, but history of problems that have been related to the file or the person or whatever.
Yeah, it's really specific to your repo.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Yeah. So there's one more thing I want to show
Let's
you guys,
see it.
which is, I might be opening this PR review to look at the comments from my colleagues. And so we have a new pull request comments integrated in Visual Studio.
So
this
nice.
is coming, right?
Can I just be honest with you? Pull requests have terrified me.
Yeah.
It's like I'm going to mess something up in Git, things are going to explode, and things are going to catch on fire. This is making it so much nicer.
It is. And that's also one of the reasons why the shared terminal feature in Visual Studio Live Share is also really helpful, because, I think Jeff Fritz even says, how many pair programming sessions end with 5 minutes of cleaning up Git, right?
Yeah, that's
and
true.
you need the terminal for that. So So what I can do here is look at all the participants who have commented on this particular pull request, and you can see that I've participated, Shri has participated, K7 has participated, but I can go ahead and uncheck the humans here, and all I have left are comments from Intellicode, right? And then I can go ahead and click on this one, and it'll open up a where that comment is. I'm just going to switch to inline mode so you can see this. And what you can see is that I'm creating a rectangle, but Intellicode has caught a bug.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
Right. So it's saying, did you mean to use Y1 instead of X1? In this case, I have a width and a height, and I kind of inverted them, which happens often when people have short variable names.
Right.
But Intellicode actually picked this up. This is the kind of bug that, like, a static analyzer really can't check, because this isn't a static.
No, it's not code. It's like a merged
It's
thing.
actually looking at basically the way that you're calling this API and all of the code patterns and the control flow that kind of goes into that, and then it tells you that you made a mistake.
And it's like writing the actual comment too?
Right, so that's the thing, is it now says, did you mean to use this one instead of that one? And I can actually go ahead and apply this fix right here, and you'll see that it'll actually fix up the code.
Wow.
Right? And then I can do like a little thumbs up.
And I guess one other thing to add, as managers did a thumbs up, the thing to emphasize with all of these machine learning models is that, they have something at the beginning, but of course the user feedback of, does the user take a suggestion, do they like it? If we give them this recommendation, do they actually spend more time reviewing it, or they're like, nah, that's not actually a problem? So we take all these signals and we want to keep using them to learn and improve the model. Yeah.
This is amazing because like there's so many of the bugs I've written have just been careless, dumb, like this thing.
Right.
I meant Y2 or Y1 or whatever. I mean,
Right.
it's pretty amazing that it's able to do that, and you're able to get this in line in a pull request now.
Yes.
Cool.
Exactly.
All right, we got about 2 minutes, so I'm going to take a couple of questions, and then we're going to have to wrap up. Was there one more thing you wanted to call out?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's good.
Anything? Yeah.
Awesome. Well, VS Intellicode be available to VS Code.
So a lot of the functionality itself actually is independent of the client. So eventually we will be able to host it in VS Code as well.
Awesome. Is Intellicode and the models for it open source?
No, actually that's a really interesting conversation. I don't think that anybody yet has figured out how to open source models and training. And so I think that that's something that we're really trying to think about, is how to, like if you think about the version history for models, for ML, what does it look like to open source that? I think we're still learning.
Yeah, it's literally a network of numbers,
Right.
and vectors, and
But you have to basically take the original training set, any new training that you're passing in, along with all of the deep learning feedback as well, and you'd have to version that over time. So I think we would love to get there. We just need to kind of figure out what it means.
yeah, I mean, this is a good thing. I mean, I could imagine a scenario where people in the future can put their own models in, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
Which is
Totally.
pretty cool. Or maybe someone came up with a really good pull request model they want to sell and that's burning it as an extension.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty neat idea what we can do with AI nowadays. And then as we democratize AI and Microsoft works on that, we can put it into features like this that help us build better code.
Right. Exactly.
Awesome. Where can people go to find out more?
Go to aka.ms whack Intellicode.
Intellicode, aka.ms, whack Intellicode. Awesome. Well, we are about 30 seconds out from the keynote. We're going to be going to that live here in a second, but we have a keynote recap afterwards, whatever time we're left. And then we have a bunch of awesome content for you to watch, not just sessions, but live interviews with people. I think we have a mobile one. We have modernizing desktop apps on Windows 10, serverless and Node.js, tons of future of .NET on the desktop, and then we have a recap with some awesome people. We're very excited to have you here. Hopefully you'll be able to tune in for the rest of the day and watch all the good stuff and developments that come up. But coming up next, obviously, we have the keynote. Make sure you stay and watch that. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. I know I will. See you after the keynote.